The Belmont family always carried the weight of magic in our blood. For generations, we've kept the ancient ways alive, passed from mother to daughter, from grandmother to granddaughter, a sacred, often heavy responsibility. I was raised in it, taught to respect the power and wield it wisely. My sister Evelyn and I held to those teachings with reverence, believing in balance and discipline. And then there is my daughter, Ruby, our little spark of chaos. Ruby isn't like us. She is what I like to call a Gen Z firebrand. She had the power. Oh, did she have the power, but none of the control. She was smart, sharp as a knife, and fierce in ways I envied but feared. But with all that fire inside her came something darker: anxiety, depression, and the weight of emotions she couldn't handle. Where Evelyn and I saw magic as a responsibility, Ruby saw it as a tool to make life easier, to fix what was broken, including herself. We tried to guide her, Evelyn and I, but Ruby, she rejected us at every turn. To her, we were relics clinging to old-world traditions that had no place in her modern life. She believed magic was meant to be used freely, no consequences, no rules. The warnings we gave her fell on deaf ears, and soon her magic became more than reckless. It became dangerous. The signs were subtle at first. A girl who teased Ruby in high school broke out in a strange rash that no doctor could explain. Then Ruby's ex-boyfriend found his life unraveling, a string of disasters that looked too much like a curse. And the worst? The neighbor who ran over our family dog by accident. I'll never forget the chill that ran through me when they found him in his living room, surrounded by symbols and candles, lost to a darkness we both recognized, one that ran deeper than grief, fueled by powers best left untouched. We tried to stop her, to pull her back from the edge, but Ruby wouldn't listen. Magic had become a weapon, an escape, her way of coping when the world was too much to bear. The more she used it, the more it fed on her, and the emptiness inside her only grew. It all came to a head on a cold autumn night. The wind howled outside like an omen, and the moon sat low and heavy in the sky, casting an eerie glow. Ruby had locked herself in her room for days, and I could feel the magic thick in the air, pressing against my skin like the weight of an approaching storm. Evelyn felt it too. Something terrible was coming. When we finally forced our way into her room, the sight that met us shattered my heart. Chaos ruled, books strewn across the floor, furniture overturned, and symbols scrawled on the walls in dark ink. And there, in the center of it all, was Ruby. Her eyes were wide, wild and unseeing, as if she was looking straight into a world only she could see. She was surrounded by a circle of black candles, chanting words I knew weren't her own. The air buzzed with raw, dangerous energy, and the temperature had dropped so low I could see my breath. It hit me then. We had failed her. She hadn't been just rebelling for a long time. She was lost, consumed by the very power we had tried to teach her to control. She wasn't just endangering herself. She hurt people, and anyone who crossed her was in danger. Evelyn and I shared a glance, the kind that carries years of shared experience, love, and regret. We both knew what had to be done. It was the last thing we wanted, but there was no other choice. We began the incantation, years of practice guiding our voices in perfect harmony. My words were steady, but my heart broke with every syllable. Evelyn's hand found mine as we chanted together, our voices weaving a spell of binding. The light that filled the room was blinding, pure, and relentless. Ruby screamed, a sound of rage, of pain and betrayal, but the magic wrapped around her like a cocoon, sealing her power away, locking it deep inside where it could no longer harm her or anyone else. The room fell silent. The only sound was our ragged breathing. Ruby collapsed to the floor, unconscious. Her magic was bound, and for the first time in what felt like forever, her mind was at rest. I knelt beside her, brushing the hair from her face, tears falling freely. Evelyn placed a hand on my shoulder, her expression heavy with sadness. We had saved her from herself, but at a terrible cost. We carried Ruby to her bed and tucked her in, like we used to when she was a child. She looked so small, so vulnerable, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we had only delayed the inevitable. Evelyn spoke quietly, almost to herself. The magic isn't gone, Dorothy. It's still inside her, and one day it will find a way out. I knew she was right. The binding spell wasn't a solution, it was a temporary fix, a bandage over a wound that ran too deep to heal with magic alone. The darkness in Ruby wasn't just in her power, it was in her heart, in her soul, and no spell could change that. As I stood by her bedside watching her sleep, I whispered a prayer to the universe. I prayed for Ruby to find peace, for her soul to heal, for her heart to lighten. I prayed that when the day came that her magic broke free, she would be strong enough to control it. Because if she wasn't, if the darkness won, there wouldn't be enough magic in the world to stop what would come next. This isn't just a story of witches or magic or ancient rituals. It's a story about love, fear, and the choices we make to protect the people we care about, even when those choices hurt. Ruby is my daughter, and I'll do whatever it takes to keep her safe, even if it means saving her from herself. And as Evelyn and I left Ruby's room that night, the shadows in the corners seemed to shift, as if something unseen was waiting, watching. We had bound the magic, but I knew it was only sleeping, biding its time, and when it awoke, we'd be ready, or so I hoped.